Guys, if you're going to be giving out advice, you better have a track record that proves that you have some credibility. The problem with the coronavirus is that the people giving the most advice have the worst track record. Let's look at the numbers. Alright guys, the numbers that I want to look at relate to the death rate. As this article points out, that 3 states account for 42% of all COVID deaths. And they're asking why New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts have death rates that are so high compared to the rest of the country. That's the right question to ask. Unfortunately, people from these states are trying to tell everybody else what to do. Now I'm going to do a closer look at COVID deaths per 100,000. This information is from NBC News, published at the website right there that you can click the link to. And we're taking the total number of COVID deaths and dividing it by the state population. It's a more accurate way to measure deaths than by dividing it by the positive tests or number of tests, because each state is using a different way of reporting and gathering testing information. Now the worst states is already looked at: New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. All right, so 171 people per 100,000 people in New York died of coronavirus. New Jersey, it's 176. Massachusetts, it's 122. Connecticut should be here. I'm pretty sure that Connecticut is about the same as Massachusetts. So those 4 states have triple-digit deaths per 100,000. Now you can click on the NBC link and see that, some states have single digits and most have double digits, and somehow these 3 states have triple digits. What are some of the best states? Texas, 8 deaths per 100,000. Now this is not the best, this is among the best, but it's noteworthy because Texas is a very big state with a very diverse population, and it has several big cities: Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin. Oh, and Orla. So, the fact that they have a single-digit death rate is absolutely remarkable. People should be asking what Texas is doing right. But instead, the communists in the media are trying to shame Texas. Communists from this area are trying to tell Texas they're doing something wrong because they've had a recent uptick in cases. Now, by the way, they're also trying to shame Florida along with Texas. Florida only has 23 deaths per 100,000 population. A lot of those people in Florida are coming from these states. All right, now to put these deaths in perspective, we can take out the factor of the rate and just look at the absolute numbers. Texas just crossed 4,000 deaths of coronavirus, I believe it was yesterday. So these deaths are from July 20th. And the overall population of Texas is 28 million, almost 29 million. And New York has a smaller population. Guess how many deaths of coronavirus, straight up deaths, does New York have? 32,584. This is a huge difference in numbers. These people should not be lecturing these people. Am I wrong? And by the way, influenza deaths in Texas in the 2017-2018 flu season were 9,470. So if the COVID deaths in Texas doubled, it would still not even match the influenza deaths from a couple seasons ago. And by the way, to put that in a rate, these influenza deaths, measured per 100,000, there should be a 0 there, is 32. And this information is from the Houston Chronicle. All right, so these states, what measures did they take? What are the hallmarks of their COVID approach? First of all, they had an extended lockdown. Did this affect these numbers and make them that bad? It was theoretical to apply to slow the spread. Maybe it dragged out the virus longer than it should have. It also may have interrupted herd immunity. Any attempt at herd immunity was disrupted by an extended lockdown in these 3 states. These 3 states use mandatory masks. All right, it's funny sometimes on social media seeing people having to wear masks in these regions. It's like, oh, you still wearing masks? And their death rate is certainly
cause to question the efficacy of masks. If they have these strict mask laws but the worst death rates, we need to ask, do masks really work? Now, the thing about masks is that, my personal opinion, they're stupid. And, when have we in the United States ever worn masks? Oh yeah, the Spanish flu. Some people are sharing this picture of people wearing masks in the Spanish flu. Wear a mask or go to jail. History repeating itself. Guys, the fact that they wore masks during the Spanish flu is not a ringing endorsement of masks. I don't know when or how long they were required to wear masks, but the second wave of the Spanish flu is a legendary death event, not only in the United States, but across the whole world. So the third thing that these states did that I think that we need to look at is their use of ventilators. All right, I'm not joking here. I mean, ventilators are like a death sentence for some elderly people and weak people. Did these states rely on ventilators too heavily? And more importantly, was there a financial incentive for public hospitals to use ventilators, in terms of receiving Medicare money, that it could have affected the death rate? And, maybe there are procedures for dealing with positive old folks in the nursing homes. That's something I've seen a lot of articles about. We need to look at these things, okay? Now, what kind of procedures were used in Texas compared to these states? Well, first of all, there was a very short lockdown. It was unofficially ended around Easter time. Rural areas, people started returning to normal. Municipal rodeo grounds were closed, but private rodeo grounds, cowboys were out there roping. Life was returning to normal. And the official end of the lockdown, I believe, occurred around May. And there wasn't immediately a huge jump in cases or in deaths. No masks. Texas did not have masks. And I have put an asterisk here because that was the case until, ironically, Independence Day, July 4th, when Governor Abbott, who had previously said there would be no masks, put into effect a mask mandate by executive order. It wasn't, the compliance is still iffy. However, something strange happened to this death rate. It went up. It went up to 13. Now, I'm not purposefully trying to conflate causality and correlation, but the death rate has gone up since masks were implemented. Was a death rate gone up caused by the masks? Well, the people who may have been pushing Governor Abbott to issue a mask mandate may also have been behind the scenes changing the criteria for what counts as a COVID death. That a lot of the death certificates went from COVID-caused deaths to COVID-related deaths. Like a lot of accounting tricks. But still, the infections are going up. I know plenty of people are being infected, and unfortunately, some people are dying. Now, in terms of the ventilators, I don't know how Texas' approach to ventilators is different than these states, but I would say, formerly living in Massachusetts and now living in Texas, that Massachusetts doctors are very quick to use medical intervention. And Texas doctors are a little more conservative. They have more of a wait-and-see approach. And so maybe that was a factor. But there's also a cultural difference between this area and Texas, and that has to do with #science. That these areas are increasingly less religious, less respect for God, and in its place has come #science, where science is almost like an unassailable authority. And, Texas, they still have respect for God, and they have the humility to understand that science can be wrong. So many people, including healthcare, doctors, have a whatever works approach, that they're not afraid to go straight off the guidelines of #silence or Dr. Fauci. They're less willing to, watch a grandma die without at least trying some other procedure. And, as an example, there's a doctor in Odessa, Texas named Dr. Richard Bartlett who's been using steroid inhalers with his patients who have COVID, and he's reporting a 100% success rate in preventing the breathing issues caused by COVID. Now, I know what some of you are saying, that's anecdotal evidence, it's not a peer-reviewed study of steroid inhalers. But the thing is, you're resorting to hashtag science, which even during this whole pandemic has changed its mind on masks. Previously, hashtag science was saying, not to wear masks when the infection rate was at its worst. And now that the infection or the death rate is going down, that, hashtag science suddenly says everybody needs to wear a mask. A lot of Texas doctors are doing what they need to do, but they're doing it behind the scenes. They're not doing it on social media or fanfare. They're saving their patients. And I think that these low numbers are a testament to a lot of Texas doctors doing whatever works. Now, if you were a governor and you were going to craft a policy for how you would deal with coronavirus, would you want to base it on the success of these states or of these states? It's an important question to ask, and you got to look at the numbers. And in conclusion, I just want to leave you guys with a paraphrased quote from Ronald Reagan. The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from New York and I'm here to help." Thanks for listening, guys.